cool, wet day in northeastern Spain, another rolling stage where we could see a field sprint for the second day in a row. Just inside of 170 kilometers, the red line is where the riders are right now. They have already gone over the only 2 categorized climbs on the day, still have 1 more intermediate sprints. And we now have a 6-man breakaway that went clear earlier in the day. Their lead is down to just over 2 minutes on the peloton, dealing with rain showers and temperatures in the low 50s for this stage 2. Steve Schlanger alongside Todd Gagulski, and this is the group hunting them down. The main field paced by Team Sky in the dark colors with the light blue helmets. The team of defending Tour de France champion Chris Froome, one of the many high-profile names in this year's race.
And Steve, the field here really looking like it is going to be setting up for a second consecutive day of field sprints. And the next couple of days, they hit 2 big summit finishes, and that's where the general classification will get completely turned upside down.
Top 3 after day 1, and then some of the other big names, everybody within 10 seconds of the lead. So no one losing major time on the first day, with the exception of Richie Porte of Team Sky, who has fallen ill since his appearance in Tirreno Adriatico. 40K left to go in the stage, but earlier, this was the start. Alberto Contador in the yellow, and behind him, Chris Froome, the dark colors of Team Sky, leading the field off the line for this stage of 168 kilometers. Froome and Contador expected to battle for the yellow jersey once again at this year's Tour de France.
And with just over 60 kilometers to go earlier today, the 6-man breakaway still enjoying the dry roads with threatening clouds. And no real danger men in this breakaway group, Steve, with the exception potentially of Thomas Voeckler, who's on the front right now in the green colors of Europcar. He has really propelled himself into some incredible rides in history in the Tour de France, where he's made some long-distance breakaway group efforts, and he's gotten a lot of time, and then it's taken many days for the main favorites to wrestle that jersey back from him. So don't expect the field to give Voeckler a whole lot of free rein.
Well, you see just how close the field is to the breakaway. The largest margin they have had over the course of the entire day has only been 2.5 minutes, and now it's down under 1 minute with just inside of 40 kilometers left to go. So they are slowly reeling them in. Looks like we are setting up for another full field sprint like we saw in stage 1 yesterday. The only 2 categorized climbs came much earlier in the stage. The second one topped out with over 80 kilometers left to go to the finish. So just some rolling terrain, 1 intermediate sprint, and then the finish left to go on stage 2 at the Volta a Catalunya. We come back looking down on our 6-man breakaway that is just now 35 seconds ahead of the main field. So they have them in their sights on this long, flat, open road. Still a few more uncategorized hills to go over. But nothing in the terrain or the way the race is unfolding would lead you to believe that we're going to see anything but a sprint once again today.
I would say the only way that group or somebody from that group would stay away is if the rain turned so horrendous that the peloton got more into survival mode with all the spray in their faces and couldn't organize their chase very well. But the roads are big, they're pretty flat, and it's very easy to organize a chase.
The next 2 days, stages 3 and 4, are mountaintop finishes. So this is the last opportunity for any of the sprinters to really get a stage win before later in the race. So they will not want to miss out on their chance. And judging by the way that the field has kept the break in check all day long, not giving them much leeway, you can bet that the sprinters' teams are intent on keeping things together the rest of the way, just over half a minute back of our 6-man breakaway.
That's easily within grasp of the peloton. You notice on the left side of the peloton, there are a bunch of the Skymen lined up in their black jerseys with their blue vertical stripe, and now would be on the right side. And they're not up there really concerned about the breakaway so much as they are just, you know, some wet roads, keep Froome up close to the front, keep him out of trouble. It's all about safety at this point in the game. It's not about them trying to chase down the break or win the stage. Sky does not have a bona fide sprinter here.
We do apologize for some of the picture breakup because of the inclement weather in Spain. Not always easy to transmit the images, so just bear with us for the remainder of stage 2 that will be held in the rain. It will not clear up the rest of the way. And there you get a look at the open road and just how close the field is to the breakaway. And as far as the sprinters who would likely challenge for a stage win today, pretty much the same lot that we looked at yesterday.
Indeed, Howard was second yesterday, Mezgec getting the win, and those two both with very dialed leadouts. But you also cannot discount the Omega Pharma Quick-Step leadout for Julian Alaphilippe, as he was third yesterday, and you know that leadout train for that team often rides for Cavendish and Bonin, so they're very good in that discipline. Danny Pate here, the American on the front for Sky, rolling along at a very nice pace.
And there are some roundabouts near the finish. The last one coming just 500 meters from the line, and with these wet roads, that could be kind of tricky for the field as well. These leadouts aren't necessarily the genuine true leadouts you'll see in some of the bigger races with the pure sprinters, kind of a mixed bag of riders. Yeah, so the nerves start to become a factor, and you never know what can happen. When the road is wet, you deal with some of the traffic furniture in your way, and you're going at full speed trying to set a guy up for a full field sprint.
Yeah, and you know, there's no doubt that setting up a lead out is a very difficult thing to do in road cycling. It's one of the most complex disciplines of the sport. And yesterday, the final sprint was pretty chaotic. No team really had control over the finish. Oh,
well, this is probably the least surprising thing you'll see all day. Thomas Volkler leaving the other breakaway riders behind, going out on his own here, sensing that they were about to be caught, so why not launch a solo move?
Yeah, Jerome Bogny, the Wanty rider from Belgium, going on the attack. He is followed by Rutkevich of the Polsat team. Koch is the man in green, the German for Cannondale, and boy, the group is just completely blown apart trying to catch Volkler here.
Volkler used to riding by himself in situations like this. May not fancy his chances of making it all the way to the line, but probably realizing that it's either do it this way or have no chance to win the stage.
That group certainly did not enjoy a very big gap at this point. It seemed like they were sort of half-heartedly continuing on, and Volkler now can throw everything into an effort here. But the first thing he's going to have to do is stay away from the other guys, and if they stay very motivated to chase him, it's going to be hard to get away on his own because it's wide open out here.
Volkler has won 4 individual stages of the Tour de France in his career. He's won other races like the 4 Days of Dunkirk, Tour de Luxembourg, national road race champion of France on 2 different occasions, and has never met a breakaway move that he hasn't liked. So the 4 chasers at the bottom of the screen, Volkler at the top. This is the front of the race, but the main field of all the top general classification contenders within a minute of all these riders. And everybody within 60 seconds of a place at the front.
Very typical Thomas Volkler, very aggressive racer. He wins a lot of races by attacking the breakaway. He's all over the bike. He's not smooth. He's not a pretty bike racer, but he's a very aggressive bike racer and very fun to watch.
It's Spain's oldest stage race, the Volta a Catalunya, and we are down inside the final 30 kilometers of stage number 2. The rain continues to fall on stage 2 of the Volta a Catalunya, down to the final 26 miles of a 168-kilometer stage, heading northeast today to the finishing town of Girona. So this is a home game for a lot of these riders who live in the ancient town of Girona. Can maybe sleep in their own beds, hit their favorite cafe, dinner in the local restaurant tonight. Not often do they get to end a stage of a major race in the town they live in.
Incredibly rare, and in fact a lot of guys will still end up staying in the team hotel just for lack of distractions there, and the team often wants to keep everybody together. But you know, Rutkevich here, he he fell out of the breakaway when the attack happened by Volkler, so now there are only 4 guys left chasing Volkler, and probably pretty close behind him still.
Now these are roads that these guys train on all the time, so very familiar territory. A lot of the American riders actually live in Girona, use it as a European base during the heart of the season.
Yeah, almost the entire Garmin Sharp team lives in and around Girona.
So Volkler hanging it out there as long as he can. Still early in this year's Volta a Catalunya, but last year it was the Irishman Dan Martin who took the biggest win of his young career. Dan Martin of the aforementioned Garmin Sharp team, riding away with the win. He's a guy who can climb, has a fast finish, and this is a race really that is perfectly suited for his skills.
He knows these roads, fantastic climber like you said, and it was the biggest win of his career, but he's won some other big ones too.
Well, he went on to win Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Great run of form for him last year. What do you think of his chances of coming back and defending this year?
I think it's going to be really tough for Dan. We have not seen a lot of great results out of Dan so far this year. But the strange thing is last year, he didn't have a lot of great results leading up to Catalunya either. But when he got here, he took a huge risk on the second summit finish day, went long, and got the win, and it was very impressive.
Volkler coming up on the final 20 kilometers, and right now this is the final intermediate sprint that he's about to go under. The banner just overhead. First intermediate sprint was at 50K. This one at 22K left to go. Points and time available at the intermediate sprints. The time 3:2 and 1 second for the first 3 across. There's bonus time at the finish, which is much greater, 10:6 and 4 seconds for the first 3. Everybody stretched out here, and a crash right in the middle of the road, it looked like.
Yeah, a couple of guys on the ground, 2 different groups there, some riders off the road. And Steve, a lot of times on these wet days, it's like driving your car on snow. If a car in front of you has a problem, you put on the brakes, you can't slow down either, and you crash into them. But absolutely did not really get a look at what happened to cause that crash.
Oh, Volkler well ahead of what just happened. Let's go back and take one more look and see where the initial problem occurred.
So it's just off the left of our screen as guys were hitting the ground. One of the Cannondale riders in green and the other men all covered up with their rain jackets. And then that second group of riders off to the right side. So it looks like about 10 riders directly involved in that crash.
All right, these riders were part of the original breakaway in which Thomas Volkler attacked, so he's left them behind, and they're trying to hang on with just about 20K to go. Thomas Volkler just going through the 22K mark a few moments ago, the final intermediate sprint.
This is Belkov on the front, the Katusha rider. And these guys are not messing around. Volker's going good. Marchinski's in second, Koch is third, and the man on the back is Bogny, the Belgian. Volkler is such an interesting character, so colorful on the bike. And Steve, I don't think a lot of people are really familiar with a lot of his history. He's called, his nickname is Petit Blanc, Little White. He grew up on the island of Martinique, and all his friends were dark-skinned, so they called him Petit Blanc. His father was a pharmacist, but also a sailor, and he went sailing one day after he had given Volkler a bike for his birthday, and his father got lost at sea and never came back. Volkler later moved back to France, and he started racing on that bike that his father had given him several years before. I believe it was like a purple bike, and it was several years old, and he immediately took to the sport of cycling, and well, now he's worn the Tour de France leader's jersey almost 20 days in his career.
And it's very interesting because he's kind of a national hero in France because of his riding style, not necessarily because of his accomplishments. He's won 4 stages of the Tour, but it's not like he's won the overall race or he's always one of the favorites to win stages or to be on the podium. It's really just because of his style of racing.
Oh, he's so incredibly aggressive, and just look at his style on the bike. He's all over that thing. He's thrashing about. The other guys are so much smoother than him, but this is the way he makes the power. He uses his entire body, and he is just an incredibly interesting guy to watch.
Now for some of the other top names that won't be involved in the sprint today, you can bet they're going to try and stay near the front of the field because, as we just saw, crashes can happen at any time. Wet roads, the field will be kicking up the speed the closer they get to the finish to try and set it up for what we expect will be a full field sprint. And who knows what might happen in terms of the roundabouts, the danger around every corner. This is one of those days where the top general classification riders really worry about the last 5K.
Oh, you better believe it. Anything could happen at any time in this bike race, but in the last 5K or even 10K, if you do have a mishap, the field is going so fast and you have very little time to have your team get you back up to the race where the action is so you don't lose time. So the closer you get to the finish, the more critical it is not to have a problem.
And these 4, part of the original breakaway now in that no man's land between the field, between Volta. Going backwards more than they're going forwards at this point, even though they are just inside of half a minute behind Volta, but he seems to be riding away from them while the field is closing in.
Volta is capable of some incredible rides that we've seen over the years. And it's just another of the reasons why he's so popular in his native France, because you just never know what to expect from him other than he will be aggressive. We always know that if he sees a chance to attack, he will attack.
Thomas Volta still out front, but his lead is under a minute. The field has not let him go. He was part of an original 6-man breakaway, attacked them once this peloton started to close in. And now the red line is where the racers are at this point. They've gone over the only 2 categorized climbs, through the 2 intermediate sprints, and now headed towards the finish. This is what's left of the breakaway that Volta attacked. 1 rider has already been picked up by the main field. 4 still left out there, but it doesn't look like for much longer. Now, Team Sky has been leading the main field, and of course their main man is Chris Froome.
Yeah, Froome is a guy who has not raced since winning the Tour of Oman back in February. He didn't do Tirreno Adriatico due to some, what the team is calling, minor inflammation in his back. I did speak with the team director, Dario Cioni, earlier today just to check in with him about Froome, and he says he thinks he's fine. And, you know, he did miss some racing, but he's been training really well, and he expects good things out of Froome the next couple of days in the big mountains. But when I pressed Cioni a little bit, what are you expecting from him? What type of result? He basically just said he will do his best on the day. So they're hedging a little bit. They're not saying Froome is definitely good right now.
Well, if you're one of the top contenders for the Tour de France, how much do you want to show in a race like this? If you're Chris Froome and you're in this field along with your top contenders like Alberto Contador, Nairo Quintana, do you want to deliver a psychological blow by showing that you have the goods this early in the season, or do you want to hold something back and maybe bluff them a little?
I think you want to show that you're better than them. It's very interesting you asked me that question, because I followed up with Dario Cioni immediately and asked him basically the same question. How important was this race? And he said that Froome was determined to win this race. It was very important for him. And I think if you're Alberto Contador, you're Chris Froome, whichever of those guys comes out ahead over the 7 stages in Catalunya has a little bit of a psychological advantage moving forward to the Tour. And every little advantage you can get makes a difference.
Well, I think it's fascinating because typically what riders will say early in the season, they're just riding some of these races for training, for form. The results don't really matter. But you look back over the results of some of the big races the last few years, the guys who have won the Tour, Brad Wiggins, Chris Froome, they've won almost every race they entered leading up to the Tour.
Yeah, especially the stage races, because that's where they can really shine. And speaking of really shining, it's Giant Shimano on the front right now, and 16K to go, and it looks to me like they are concerned about that breakaway off the front. And Steve, I was in contact with one of their men after the race yesterday, Chad Haga, new on the team, coming over from the U.S., and I asked him, well, you know, is Mezgec going to go 2 for 2? And he says, absolutely, that's our goal. He won it the first day. We want him to win it the second day with the leader's jersey on.
Now, right now, the breakaway still hanging on. Volkler on the far left, scarfing down a snack before the finish. The 4 riders on the right. Now, they are what's left of the breakaway. They're about 20 seconds or so behind Volkler. And the pace of the peloton, which we just saw a moment ago, led by Giant Shimano, these 4 on the right, they may not be out there much longer. And same could be said for Volkler, the way things are really picking up back here with 16K to go.
Yeah, the peloton really starting to show some interest in the sprinters teams at the front. Giant Shimano we mentioned, but also Orica Green Edge. They had second place yesterday, the Australian Lee Howard. Both of those teams with a lot of men at the front. And we're going to see another showdown today. Today's finish a little bit more straightforward than yesterday. A straighter road. It's a flat road. So that will be a little bit better for them with these rainy conditions. But like you said, there is a traffic circle.
And that final traffic circle about 500 meters from the finish. Now that is not Michael Koch. That is indeed Thomas Volkler. Pushing on through the rain.
That's the other shade of green.
So 15K to go.
Look at him rolling along there in the big gear, the 53. It looks like he's either in his 12 or his 11 in the back. It looks like it's probably a 12 cog, maybe a 13. It's very hard to do that at the end of almost 4 hours of racing, especially in the cold, because your muscles just don't work. Like, look at how much this guy is working. He is absolutely flogging himself right now to try and stay on top of that gear and keep the speed up.
Kilometers of stage number 2 on the road to Girona in northeastern Spain. Thomas Volkler is the single figure on a bike that you're looking at right there on the screen from the Europcar squad. Part of a 6-man breakaway for most of the day. He attacked them with over 20K to go when it looked like they were about to be caught by the peloton. The rest of that break has been caught, so it's now Volkler out there by himself, and that peloton is within a minute of Volkler right now. Can he hang on the rest of the way? Gogo, how much of a chance do you give him?
0.5%. Not very much.
And there is the race leader, number 168 there in the white with the green stripes, Luka Mezgec, who won the sprint yesterday and took that overall leader's jersey as a result. And he figures to be in the mix for another stage win today if he can get himself in position, because if Volkler gets caught, we're going to have another field sprint.
Yeah, it certainly looks like Volkler is not going to make it, but you can never give up. You got to keep trying. You've already put so much energy into being off the front all day with the other 5 guys, then attacking them and going solo. And so there's just nothing you can do at this point except for be all in and just hope that they somehow lose their organization in the chase behind you and you get that win. I have to say, the French newspaper cartoonists must have a lot of fun doing cartoon caricatures of Volkler with all his body language and his faces, and he's sticking his tongue out. He's a really very interesting guy to watch.
They have sponsors all over their jerseys. They ought to put one on Volkler's tongue, because that gets more TV time, I think, than anybody. The way he's got his tongue dangling out there all the time, it's amazing.
Another one of the CCC Pulsat men. They had 2 in that early break, which has been brought back, and now one of them trying to, I don't know what he's trying to do, quite honestly. You're not going to ride away from the peloton right now that's trying to set it up for the sprint. There's one guy off the front. Maybe he just wants to get on TV.
Well, mission accomplished. For a few brief seconds at least, but it most likely won't last long.
Sometimes you do see a guy go off the front. This is the last uncategorized bump. It's about 10 kilometers from there to the finish, and sometimes you go off the front and you hope that a couple other guys come up to you, and once again, just like Volkler up here, you hope that you get a little bit lucky and circumstances work out in a way that you can stay away, but it's very hard to do.
Do you think Volkler made a mistake attacking the rest of the breakaway when he did? Should he have held with them longer?
You know, it did seem like it was a long way from the finish, but the breakaway was actually pretty close to the peloton when Volkler went away. And then the breakaway started going faster, chasing him, and they both, I think, gained a little bit of time on the peloton. So the breakaway, I think, it just lost its impetus, and he wanted to go all in, and sometimes you can't get the other guys motivated.
So Team Sky is the group with the blue stripe down the black jerseys. Everybody wearing rain jackets for the most part right now. On the right-hand side of the road, the yellow and blue on the kits. That is Tinkoff, the team of Contador, and of course Sky, the team of Froome, as they go through the tunnel here leading to Girona. 6K from the finish. Girona itself just over 60 miles from Barcelona, about a 1-hour train ride, so it's a very popular day trip destination for the Barcelona locals.
They're beautiful riding there. That's why so many cyclists, professional cyclists, have relocated there for their training. Good weather, good accessibility to France, which is very close by, and other parts of Europe. And so it's a very popular place for the cyclists.
And the tapas are killer.
Got to have good food.
All right, so how long was 6K to go? If you're one of the sprinters teams, do you wait before you really come to the front and try to get everybody rowing the same oar?
Big roads right now, so it's a little bit easier to get your team organized. But Steve and Volkler now down to 20 seconds advantage, so he's almost certainly not going to make it. But with the larger roads, it's a little bit easier to organize. With the rain, it can be a little bit more tricky. And if another team takes control and catches you off guard, then maybe your team can never find each other. So what they're doing right now is you look for all of the Orica Green Edge guys, and they'll all be getting together. Even if they're not on the front, you look for all of the teams of Giant Shimano, and they'll all get together. You look for all the guys on Omega Pharma Quickstep, and you just sit there and you lurk, and guys look around, and one of their road captains, basically, he will just be looking for that swarm, and then he'll tell his guys to hit it, and they'll go for it.
Time slipping away for Thomas Volkler.
I used to have a teammate who was so good at that because he was 6'6", Michel Zanoli, and he would just sit on his hoods. 5K to go here for Volkler, 3.1 miles, and Zanoli would just look around and he would bark orders at us because he could see above everybody.
Like a human periscope. And Volkler knows it. The gig is up. He looks back, sees the field, 5K to go. So he won't push on.
Pretty rare for Volkler to sit up before he actually gets clawed back in. Usually he fights to the very last pedal stroke.
A lot of the time you see him attacking, it's in the mountains. So knowing that we have mountaintop finishes each of the next 2 days, maybe he'll save a little energy for what's to come in stages 3 and 4. And now that Volkler's been brought back, everyone together, this is the front of the race, 5K from the finish.
Volkler's going to be hurting a bit from those efforts today. And so it's going to make tomorrow a very tough day for him. They have halfway through tomorrow's stage a beyond classification climb that's over, well, it's 1,900 meters. And then they have the finishing climb as well, which is a category 1. So it's going to be a big day for the general classification men.
All right, so as you can see, we don't have one full team in control. Riders from several different squads at the front right now. Others hovering at the back with 4K left to go to the finish. So you'll have wide roads, largely flat, a few roundabouts. That's what's left here in the final few minutes of stage number 2. Really, it's the wet roads and those roundabouts that the riders have to be most concerned about.
These are very nervy moments in that peloton, because if you're a general classification man, you're trying to stay out of trouble. If you're one of the sprinters, or one of the sprinters' teammates, or one of the general classification men's teammate for that matter, you have so many things on your mind, and the sprinters are now jockeying for position. Their teammates are trying to take control of this race, and nobody with control.
BMC rider in the red just off the front. Doesn't look like he's trying to really get away, but taking up that pole position there around one of those roundabouts we mentioned. It's Marcus Burghardt who is making that move for BMC. And still 3 more roundabouts to go. One at 2K, one at the red kite with 1 kilometer left to go, and the final one at 500 meters to the finish.
Burghardt, a big, strong man. He was instrumental in his teammate Cadel Evans' win of the 2011 Tour de France. He's kept Cadel out of trouble on all these flatter days like this. And I'll tell you, just taking off the rain jacket right now, in these speeds, in the finale of a race, that's very hard to do. Do not try that at home. In fact, it looks like he just tossed it. A lot of times they'll stuff it up under the back of their jersey. But it gets so dangerous out there, and he's coming into another roundabout, and he says, well, bye-bye rain jacket.
2 kilometers left to go. Now things very stretched out in the field here. Pace extremely quick at the front, and as we come up on the 4-hour mark of a rainy, cool stage number 2. Riders making their way into Girona. Giant Shimano and the dark colors at the front, again trying to set up the overall race leader and yesterday's stage winner Luka Mezgec for his 2nd consecutive win. Roberto Ferrari of Lampre would be their sprinter. Lee Howard of Orica Green Edge was 2nd yesterday. He'll be going for the win today as well. Daniele Ratto of Cannondale, he's the man in the green there. It looks like at the bottom of the screen has at least one teammate alongside.
And Ratto's lead out for Cannondale yesterday kind of ran out of steam, and then he jumped over to the Orica lead out, so he was doing some freelancing there at the end.
Oh, and look at this. It's Alberto Contador in the yellow for Tinkoff going to the front.
I can't imagine that he actually thinks he's going to get away here. This has to be with 1K to go, just trying to stay out of trouble. But indeed, that is the form of Alberto.
In the final kilometer, going to the front. But he's not pushing on to try and get a win. That was a momentary move. Now he's going to let the sprinters take over in the final kilometer of racing. Lee Howard near the front for Orica Green Edge. Giant Shimano still there, setting up Luka Mezgec.
And that's that final roundabout with 500 meters to go. I hope they can make it through that unscathed.
They come around that final roundabout now, and that's Brett Lancaster at the front in the white, leading out Lee Howard just behind him. Howard in great position to make up for yesterday's 2nd place finish. Julian Alaphilippe of Omega Pharma Quickstep is there as well. Marcus Burghardt of BMC.
And Mezgec is buried. He looks like he's about 12 guys back. There he goes up the left side, Steve.
And Julian Alaphilippe was boxed in on the right-hand side of the screen, on the far left, inside the final 100 meters. Here comes the race leader, Luka Mezgec, for the 2nd day in a row, and he takes a convincing stage win without a lead out and adds to his overall lead at the top of the standings.
Fantastic ride by Mezgec. He came from way back. I was looking for him, couldn't even see him, and he pops out from 12 guys back or so to get that win.
Didn't have the lead out around that final roundabout, but did it on his own to get the stage win. For the 2nd day in a row, it's Slovenia's Luka Mezgec from the Giant Shimano team getting the stage win, but this one, you have to say, Gogo, maybe more impressive than yesterday.
Incredibly good ride by him. He showed him a clean set of wheels, probably 2 or 3 bike lengths over Ferrari and Ratto behind him.
So with Roberto Ferrari just behind, as well as Daniele Ratto and Julian Alaphilippe, who was there among the leaders yesterday. Luka Mezgec gets the win and a 10-second time bonus that builds on his overall lead, now 14 seconds at the top of the standings. He's won the first two stages, worn the first two leaders' jerseys. But tomorrow, going to be a different story with the first mountaintop finish.
He can go to sleep tonight knowing he will not have to wear that jersey after tomorrow's stage, as the map doesn't tell the story that the profile does, Steve. It's about 100 miles, but big climbs in the middle of the race, 6,300 feet, and at the finish, a summit finish at almost 5,700. Cold rain forecast on the low elevations, could be snow up high.
So the sprinters will take a backseat to the climbers coming up tomorrow. And after the doomed breakaway was caught today, Luka Mezgec came through and won his second straight stage. He'll wear the leader's jersey on stage 3 tomorrow after nailing this sprint today in the town of Girona. Back-to-back mountaintop finishes now coming up on stages 3 and 4. But for now, for Todd Gogolski, I'm Steve Schlanger. Luka Mezgec is the leader, and we'll see you tomorrow, stage 3 in Catalunya. The climbers grab the throttle today on stage 3, our first mountaintop finish at the Volta a Catalunya. 163 kilometers altogether, and here are the standings coming into day number 3. Mezgec the leader, but all of the top names still right there within striking distance. I'm Steve Schlanger alongside Todd Gogolski, and there are 3 categorized climbs on today's profile. The final one is a summit finish at the end of the stage, but let's now take you back to the second climb, the first beyond classification climb of the entire race.
Steve, that breakaway of 6 had a big gap as they hit the bottom. Here they were going through the feed zone. In addition to picking up their musette bags with food, they're also picking up jackets for the descent. Back in the peloton, it is the Saxo Tinkoff team of Alberto Contador leading the charge. But this was all earlier in the day on that beyond classification climb.
And as far as the mountain points among the 6-man breakaway, this is when they went over the top of the biggest climb of the race.
There was Jack Baldrige, the Australian riding for the Belkin squad, who led them across, and from there they have stayed together pretty much all the way till this point of the race.
6-man breakaway all day long on this 163 kilometer stage. Earlier they went over a category 1, then that beyond classification climb we just saw, and then another Cat 1 coming up at the end of the stage. The red line shows you where the riders are right now. That last climb will lead them up to a ski station, La Molina, and the first mountaintop finish of this year's race. Very windy day, temperature in the mid-50s, but it's felt much colder than that, especially on the climbs where we saw a lot of snow. This is one of those bone-chilling spring days that you just have to find a way to power through.
I've seen a lot of the guys throughout the race shaking their hands, trying to get some blood into them. That beyond classification climb they went over earlier in the day, Steve, over 6,200 feet. A lot of snow up there, and temperatures close to freezing.
3 minutes, 46 seconds from the break to the field with 35K to go. 35 kilometers left to go on day 3 of 7 at the 94th Volta a Catalunya. 6-man move. Still leading the main field by over 3.5 minutes. 2 climbs down, 1 to go. First summit finish of this year's race after 2 field sprints on the first 2 stages of this year's race. Well, today could provide the first opportunity for the top riders to go head-to-head, like that man Chris Froome, who's talking with TJ Van Gardner in a BMC. Froome saying, hey, TJ, I hear you're coming for the yellow jersey this July. Good luck, big boy. Froome, of course, the winner of last year's Tour de France, and battling for the Vuelta a España title back in 2011. One of the best summit finishes you will ever see here.
Well, this was really when Froome got on everybody's radar screen, was when he was battling with J.J. Cobo in the Vuelta in 2011.
And Froome, the winner of the Tour of Oman earlier this season, skipped Tirreno Adriatico because of a lower back injury. Now this is his first race back since taking some time off. And Froome, with obviously the Tour in July, his biggest goal of the year, how much do you expect to see him really going for a win at the Volta a Catalunya over these next few days?
I think he's going to go for it big time. When I spoke with his director yesterday after the race, he said, look, Chris comes to the race to win it. He's trained very well coming into this race. He missed a little bit because he didn't get to race Tirreno Adriatico with that inflammation in his back, but he's feeling good. He's solid. He's had good training, and he's here to win.
Well, one of his top domestiques, Richie Porte, has already pulled out of this race, the Volta a Catalunya, because he's been ill. Going back to Tirreno Adriatico, another race that he dropped out of, and Porte was so instrumental to Froome winning the Tour last year. He's going to need Porte, who is also riding for himself at the Giro d'Italia this year. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic as Froome goes to defend the Tour de France, because how good will Porte be coming off of the Giro, the illness this spring, and with Brad Wiggins potentially being one of his top lieutenants at the Tour this year, a former Tour champion himself.
Well, and back in that year, 2012, Froome was the big helper for Wiggins, and there was definitely some cat fighting going on between those two. As Froome was better in the mountains, Wiggins was better in the time trials, but the team management was lined up behind Wiggins that year. Well, now they're fully behind Froome, and Wiggins says that he wants to help Froome win his second consecutive.
All right, among this six-man breakaway, a lead of about 3.5 minutes with still over 30 kilometers left to go. What do you think about the chances of someone from this group staying away all the way to the finish line? You've got Andre Zeitz of Astana, Jack Bobridge of Belkin, Michael Koch, the rider from Cannondale, Kevin Reza of Europcar, Branislav Samilau, and also Rudy Millard making up this six-man contingent. They still have several minutes, but they have that last climb that's going to be decisive.
Well, the problem for these guys is that last climb is where the general classification men really get to start testing the waters, if you will. And so that peloton almost for sure will catch them. I give them about a less than a 1% chance to produce the winner.
Heading northwest today in the Catalunya region into the Pyrenees Mountains on stage 3 of the Volta a Catalunya. Down now to the final 22 kilometers of stage number 3. Six-man breakaway here, still being chased by the peloton. Our overall leader back with the main field, Luka Mezgec, who won the first two stages in a field sprint, but likely to lose that overall lead today with the first summit finish. And the La Molina ski station is where that final climb is located. It's just over 5 kilometers at the end of the stage up to the finish line. A climb that averages 6%, hits a maximum slope of 8% at 2K from the line. So it may be not until the very end where we see the attacks come from the top general classification riders who are back here in the peloton.
Really, it's not all that severe a climb. The real challenge for the guys is just that they raced in a cold, wet day yesterday, and today they've seen some pretty cold temperatures as well. Coming off of the big climb in the middle of the race, temperatures just about freezing and then plummeting down the other side at speeds of 50 miles an hour. So a lot of wind chill. It kind of gets right into your bones, and it leaves you in a position. This is Carlos Betancourt, recent winner of the stage race Paris-Nice, one of the Colombians. And typically guys like this are not real fond of the cold days.
So he needs a straw as well, having trouble with that Coke can.
You got to you pop it open and you just chug those things. You can't mess around with them.
So the lead now for these six down inside of 3 minutes. Fair to say that today's mountaintop finish and the climbing that they have had to endure, more of a taste test for tomorrow's climbing, which is a little more severe?
Yeah, very fair to say, and the roads are even pretty wide leading up today's summit finish most of the way. So I expect that we're going to have a pretty big group pretty late in the climb today to the finish at Molina. And then somewhere in there, guys will start to test. But there's going to be enough speed that the drafting will still be a significant enough factor that it'll keep a large number of riders together.
Besides Chris Froome, who we've already seen, also TJ Van Garderen, who do you think would be among the favorites for today's stage, among those climbers?
Well, you got to go with Rodriguez, who's an explosive climber, a great finisher. You got to go with Contador, who had 2 stage wins at Tirreno Adriatico. He had his team on the front earlier in the race, keeping this breakaway group in check. I mean, the thing about this race is it's absolutely loaded with talent. Nairo Quintana, probably a better day for him tomorrow. He won on the Volta 2000 in this race last year, and he'll be coming back this year. The more severe the climb is and the longer for Quintana, the better. And tomorrow, much steeper. 12% maximum, almost 8% average. Today, 6% average, 8% max, only a few miles long. It's not a super difficult finish.
But without any time trials in this race, this is an overall general classification that's going to be decided in the mountains. So you don't want to always take the approach that, well, I'll just wait for tomorrow. You want to take your opportunities in the mountains when you get them. Well, the question now is this breakaway sunk? 14K to go, the lead down close to 1 minute.
That's been coming down pretty quickly, and nobody in the break has particularly great resume, with the exception of Bobridge, who on occasion puts in some incredible rides. He was the Australian road champion in 2011, but I've seen him do massive amounts of work in races, and it's his second year on the Belkin squad, and he's a guy who, if it's not a summit finish, he can be really dangerous. But with this big mountain, the guys are in big trouble.
Now, one thing about racing in Spain, no matter what time of year it is, you get good roads. You see here, well paved, very wide. You don't have those narrow, pothole-filled roads you get in some other countries at times. Spain usually provides pretty good conditions.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because I was talking with the American Chris Horner just before the race started, and we went on for quite a while. And by the way, his Achilles was bothering him at the Tirreno Adriatico, so he dropped out after winning last year's Vuelta, which is his primary goal this year, to defend that. But his second biggest goal is the Giro, and he's here just sort of feeling himself out to see how his Achilles is. And he said if he survives the first few days of the Giro alive, he'll be in good shape, because the Giro is absolutely off the hook, typically, with their tiny roads and their traffic furniture and the chaos in the opening week.
Now a couple of riders from the breakaway stretching out the lead somewhat here, but nothing serious, it doesn't look like. But you're starting to get to that point late in the stage where the breakaway starts to have different intentions among the various riders.
Yeah, indeed, and that's Reza, the Europe car rider, the Frenchman, 25-year-old there, and Branislav Samalau on the attack from the other guys. He's the CCC Polsat rider, 28-year-old, and Reza actually won back in 2009 3 stages of the Tour of Martinique. He's only done a Grand Tour once, and that was the Tour de France last year, with no real results to speak of. But you can see that he continues to be aggressive. He's still young, and he's trying to develop as a contender in the future in his career.
FDJ, team in the blue, riding at the front now alongside Katusha, Team Sky, Tinkoff as well. Now this Volta a Catalunya has been placed on different parts of the calendar over the years. Early on, it was long viewed as an important Tour de France preparation race for a lot of the pros, but then it moved to May, making it an alternative race for the Giro, but that didn't really work out. So just a few years ago, it moved to where it is now in late March and took the place of a former Catalan stage race. a competition known as the Setmana Catalana.
Yeah, you have to agree that this new spot on the calendar has served the race well. You look at this race with the top 4 guys from last year's Tour de France all here and all considered favorites for the general classification. Best general classification field we've seen all year. And it looks like Reza and Samalau have been joined by the Cofidis rider, Rudy Millar, up there off the front of the breakaway, the 24-year-old. So that front group of 6 is now coming apart all over the place.
That's a good position on the calendar because you have all of the classics riders doing the one-day races in Northern Europe. So the stage racers have nowhere else to go. And you've got the Basque Country coming up just after the Volta Catalunya. So it fits in nicely between various races for the right style of riders.
And you always have to think about sort of the calendar. It's very difficult to just have a real simple season for these riders because there's so many issues that their sponsors and their teams need them to cover around the world. And so the calendar is incredibly full. There's lots of races that overlap. Some guys race 100 days a year, and it can be really tough to manage a bike racer's calendar.
So the breakaway coming apart with just over 10 kilometers left to go to the finish. Half of that will be uphill to the first of the Volta a Catalunya, the breakaway. Now down to just a 37-second lead over the main field. It's all slipping away. Just about 4 kilometers away from the start of that last climb to the ski station known as La Molina.
Branislav Samalau taken off from the other 2 men as Zeitz trying to make contact from the back in the aqua colors of Astana. And now Reza for Europcar taking up the chase. And it just keeps getting a little bit steeper from here all the way to the finish pretty much. Not very steep at this point in the climb, but it certainly ends up being a little bit of a grind.
It's one of those stages where there's just no flat road whatsoever. Even if you're not on a categorized climb, you're going up and down, you're rolling, you're doing something. You're not riding on flat road. And this final climb starts to go up before the official climb actually starts. So they're gradually working their way up here with 8K left.
And Samalau just cracked. You saw him trying to sit on the wheel there of Reza for a bit and then just basically stop pedaling and look back. So he's dropping anchor, and it's now up to Reza, but under 40-second advantage, 8K to go, all uphill. The GC battle getting hot behind. It's going to take something pretty special to stay away.
Unlike the opening 2 stages, which were field sprints on flat run-ins to the line, this first mountaintop finish does not offer any time bonuses at the line. We won't see that in any of the mountain stages at the Volta a Catalunya.
And if you wonder what that car is right behind Reza that says Shimano all over it, that's neutral technical support. So that car's been following the brake. Some of the men here from the brake getting sucked up by the field. But that car will be in every single race. There'll be one behind the brake, one behind the field, and they just help out anybody whose team car is not around. If they break a bike, if they need a wheel, a puncture, whatever, they're there to help.
All right, I'm going to put your math skills to the test. Give me a percentage on Reza here, going the distance.
Well, minuscule. I mean, I said a while ago when they had 3 minutes, I said it was less than 1%. Now it's probably 0.1%. I mean, it's just tiny. The other thing about Reza is he comes into the day tied with all the GC men, 23 seconds down on the GC. So they can't let him stay ahead because then he'll ride into the lead.
I was going to say negative 10%.
Yeah,
myself.
there's just no way. I mean, you can see the field back there. If he wins the stage, he's the new race leader. It's never going to happen.
Saying 22 seconds, but we just saw a glimpse of the field coming in behind. Now Movistar in the blue and green, followed by Tinkoff in the yellow at the front.
You see Chris Anker Sorensen sitting about 6th wheel from that overhead position for Tinkoff Saxo. Now you can see him on the right of the Movistar guys. He bobs so much, his head and his upper body when he climbs, and he always looks just about like he's going to keel over and fall off the bike, but he did that exact same thing when he won the first summit finish day in the Giro d'Italia a few years ago. It was a beautiful win for him.
Well, Reza not looking like a man who's about to be caught.
No, he looks good.
Movistar at the front, though, of the field, riding for Nairo Quintana.
Quintana has to be a massive threat tomorrow. Less of a threat today. But all those guys that we've been talking about, Rodriguez, Quintana, Contador, Froome, those men have come into this race all showing they have pretty good form, and they want to get the mental edge as well as the win here over their competition. A big ring in the climb there in the front. He's on the big chain ring, so it gives you a little bit of an idea of just how fast they're going up this climb. If it's steep, you'll never be in your big chain ring on a sustained climb like this.
Now for Quintana, whose Movistar team is at the front, this is pretty much a race that suits him in the fact that there's no time trials, because that's his weak point. Maybe he'd prefer the longer, more sustained climbs altogether, but a race...
But he gets those tomorrow.
He does.
Yeah.
So a race like this that is just based on climbing, no time trialing, suits him more than any other.
He and Rodriguez, I would say. Both of those men, they both...
I meant more than any other race, not any other rider.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. Well, there you go. I agree.
It works either way, though.
It does. And those guys, their Achilles heel is a flat time trial. And if a lot of times we have seen, especially Joaquin Rodriguez, riding into the leader's jersey in a Grand Tour and losing it in spectacular fashion in a time trial. Losing not just seconds, but minutes, 4, 5, 6 minutes in an hour-long time trial. So a guy like Rodriguez loves a stage race without a time trial. It may be cold out there, but man, you can see the mineral crust all over Reza's face. That's how hard they're working. Ruben Plaza coming to the front now for Movistar and Quintana as they're starting to show their hand.
You surprised Movistar's come to the front? Maybe make Contador or Froome's team go?
Well, you know what I've seen so far in this race, even on the flat days? I've never seen, well, I take that back. Saw a little bit of Tinkoff-Saxo over the Beyond Classification climb earlier today, but it's typically been Froome's team or Movistar with Quintana's team on the front, or Katusha. And Tinkoff has been playing it a little bit cagey, just holding back a little bit, not using up a lot of their ammo before the finales of these races. So that's, good for them for bluffing a little bit, I think.
All right, so Reza knows it now.
Yeah, he's shaking the head a little bit. You can see the disappointment on his face.
He'll be caught just as his final climb is about to begin.
Still a good job by him, and a young guy, only 25, as I was saying earlier. I think we're going to see some good things out of him later in his career. He has spent his entire professional career on that team since 2010, riding for Europcar and the different iterations before it was called Europcar.
All right, so we are starting this final climb to the first summit finish of the race. The breakaway has been caught. Everybody is together. Movistar at the front. The road goes up all the way to the end of the stage. The climb averaging 6%, will hit its maximum of 8%, just 2 kilometers from the line itself. So riding up into the snow in northeastern Spain in the Pyrenees Mountains today on stage 3.
More cold temperatures to deal with. Harder, the skinnier you are, the smaller you are. Guys like Quintana especially, he is just really a tiny little guy and super lean, but he still has his team on the front, so he must be feeling all right.
And without time bonuses at the finish line, it's going to make those physical gaps even more important. How much time can you physically put into one of your top rivals?
Yeah, and let's not forget, of course, Mezgec, who won the first 2 stages, we're not talking about him in this general classification battle because he can't climb with this level of climbers. So he is the leader of the race coming into today, but he knows, and we know, that he will not be the leader once they get to the finish line.
Gogo, something I think people that watch on television a race like this in a final climb, something they have difficult comprehending is the speed that these guys ride these climbs at. Give us a sense of just how fast they're going and what type of sustained speeds they'll maintain up the climb.
It's ridiculous. And there's our max gradient at 8%, the average at 6 and 5.3 K. So that's about 3.2 miles in length. The speed that they're going right now is probably approaching 20 miles an hour still. And you'd be shocked if you were standing on the side of the road. And speaking of good climbers, there's Nairo Quintana, the Colombian, right there. But if you tried to run next to these guys, they would just blow by you. And you can't even run as fast as them unless they're on a really steep climb.
The finish at 5,600 feet in elevation, 4K away.
Plaza still on the front. The big man from Movistar, I don't expect to see him on the front too much longer. But all these teams, their hierarchy is very clear. You save your best climbing domestiques for late in the climb. You use your worst climber at the beginning. He pulls till he blows up. Then the next best climber, then the next best, and so on. And that's how the game is played.
Well, they've already gone over a Category 1 and a beyond classification climb. However, that last climb topped out over 60 kilometers from the finish. So it's been a while since they were on a climb. But now it's uphill all the way to the finish. Movistar leading the way. How much will those earlier climbs have taken something out of their legs, and how much is the fact that the climbs were so much earlier in the stage, how much does that have an impact?
I think today the big factor is the cold, and you just saw Plaza coming off the front. He had nothing on his legs. Now it's Igor Anton, who's new on the Movistar squad, full leg warmers. That tells you it's really cold. And just a moment ago, we saw Nairo Quintana, his team leader. He said, you know what, I think I'm going to go hide back a few guys further. So Contador second, Rodriguez third, Daniel Moreno fourth. It looks like Chris Froome sitting in fifth. And the general classification men start to amass toward the front.
Question now is, who is going to be the first to launch an attack?
Well, look how big this group is. And that tells you right away on a summit finish, they're going fast, except for this man here, Thomas Vogler. He's paying the price for the big effort yesterday, off the front all day. Notice the hump in his back. That's probably a vest or a jacket that he had on the descent. And they're too big often to get into your pocket. So you just pull that thing off, pull your bottom of your jersey out, and just stuff it up underneath there. TJ Van Garderen on the left of your screen in the black and red with the white glasses. That's Jakob Fuglsang on the left, out of the saddle for Astana. Contador out of the saddle looking back. Anton on the front, out of the saddle, riding for his teammate Quintana.
Earlier, when they went over that beyond classification climb on the descent, they literally passed the finish line they're going up to now. Interesting way the course is laid out. So they saw it one time already going downhill. Now they're going uphill to the end of the stage.
Yeah, just playing games with the riders. And one guy we haven't actually spoken of a whole lot yet, Steve, is TJ Van Garderen. And I actually spoke with his director on BMC, Yvonne Ledenois, yesterday after the race. And I said, you know, how's TJ doing and how's Sammy Sanchez doing? Because Sammy's the Spaniard. And Yvonne said, well, TJ's doing good. I have a lot of faith in him and a lot of trust in him. And I said, but isn't he riding for Sammy Sanchez? They're in Spain, and TJ's coming off of a little bad spell, a little illness. And he said, no, TJ's our leader. Sammy is preparing for País Vasco, which we'll have on Universal Sports in about 10 days. TJ is the leader here, and he says he's riding well.
That's not the way they played it up to the media.
Yeah,
so.
It was really strange because all their press releases said that Sammy Sanchez was here to try and win the race, and TJ was here to try and support him.
Well, we'll find out pretty shortly how good TJ is after abandoning Paris-Nice because of an illness early on. Smattering of snow still lining the roads at this point. And now getting up to the steepest part of the climb, where it hits 8%.
Darwin Ontapuma, the Colombian.
Oh, here's an attack. Europe car first on the move. And others responding.
Europe car with some men on the front a little bit ago. That is Pierre Rolland, the man who was a standout in the Tour de France a couple seasons ago. Andrew Talansky there as well, and it looks like Jakob Fuglsang, the third man.
Well, Talansky can certainly climb. This is a decent finish for him. That's Fuglsang there. He's going to try to push on as they hit the 2K banner there. Fuglsang out front.
Oh, he's taking a nice dig right now. As Jakob Fuglsang definitely making a move here to see if he can get a stage win out of this. He's not one of the top general classification threats. And if they kind of look at each other a little too much, this could be dangerous.
That's a guy who, for several years, was considered one of the next big general classification riders for the Tour de France, a guy who could step in and really be a consistent podium contender. But more often than not, he's disappointed when the time has come to battle at the Grand Tours.
Yeah, everything really has to go just right for you, especially if you're on the cusp like he has been. And he just hasn't been able to push through that last little bit.
So he's down bottom portion of the screen, the ever smaller main field at the top of the screen. His gap right now probably about 10 seconds or so, but really not riding away from the group.
Sort of dangling out there, and you can see that the domestiques continue to keep the pace up pretty high back behind, because they know that this is the first real test, and Fuglsang has been absorbed.
It doesn't take long to close down that gap. And that is the red kite, the final kilometer to the summit finish.
Huge group.
It's Moreno at the front for Katusha.
Boy, he does just incredible yeoman's work for Rodriguez on the front, time and time again, setting Rodriguez up. And Moreno wins a lot of good races in his own right as well when he's given the nod.
So Froome still there, Contador, Joaquim Rodriguez. There's Froome in the dark colors for Team Sky. He launches the move with Rodriguez on his wheel.
Rodriguez right there, but no Alberto. There comes Contador, and right behind him it's Quintana. A little bit short to respond for Quintana and Alberto, though. Rodriguez looked great.
There's your top four from last year's Tour de France. Front four right now on stage 3 of the Volta a Catalunya.
It looks like Kelderman there for Belkin, just closing it down as well.
Now Froome trying to accelerate once again, but he's not getting away.
No, and this is really playing into the hands of the man sitting in second place right now, Rodriguez, because there he goes. He's the man with the big punch.
And Contador on his wheel. Froome trying to respond. Gerard trying to pull away. Parito on the move.
And Alberto cannot match him. The two Spaniards trying to duke it out, but it seems it's no contest.
They battled on summit finishes so many times throughout their career, and right now it is Parito winning this one. Contador fading. Rodriguez riding away.
This is for the lead of the general classification. All these guys tied on time coming into the day.
Longest stage on time so far. These guys on the bike almost 5 hours now. And Joaquim Rodriguez going to make the first big statement among our overall favorites at the Volta a Catalunya as he rides away to a stage 3 win.
He's got such an explosive finish. If they can't get rid of him in advance, he does that to them time and time again. Contador looking back. It's Quintana third. Looks like TJ in fourth.
And then Froome rounding out the top 5. But Joaquim Rodriguez wins the stage. He'll be the new overall leader of the Volta as well.
Gear up.
Rodriguez, the man with the big punch as he lit it up, dropping everybody else, including Contador, who tried to stay on his wheel, getting a convincing win and setting himself up for a very nice race tomorrow.
His first victory of the year. The 34-year-old Barcelona native knows these roads so well, lives and trains in this region, and now with a victory over Contador and Quintana, he's the new overall race leader as well. Looking to win the Volta a Catalunya for the second time in his career, also won back in 2010. Leader's jersey white with green stripes here.
Look at this surprise. His kids are bringing him the flowers. Now, isn't that sweet?
Tomorrow, perhaps the most selective day of this year's race again in the mountains.
Oh, it's a brutal one. They finish on the Volta 2000 beyond classification climb. And let's remember, 12% maximum as they go up that mountain. Now, Quintana won on this same finish last year. Will he do it again this year?
So 3 days into this 4-day race. First summit finish and the first big strike coming from Joaquim Rodriguez after the 6-man breakaway was brought back just before the start of that final climb. All of the top contenders gathered near the front, and then Rodriguez burst away near the line to capture the stage and take the overall lead. It is stage 4 of the Volta a Catalunya. And if he wasn't back at the North Pole, Santa could land his sleigh at the finish today. It is snowing in the Pyrenees Mountains. Temperature only in the upper 20s for this 4th day of racing, but 2nd consecutive mountaintop finish. Light fashion for this truncated stage 4 coverage of the Volta a Catalunya. That's when we come back right after this. Under much sunnier conditions, really the best that the race has seen all week long, and this is that early part of the race that you don't often get a chance to see an initial break trying to form.
Yeah, quite often in these days, the very first attack will get away in a stage race, but this particular day, the guys were attacking and counterattacking for a very long time. As you can see, Astana and Sky and Lampre in the orange, those teams at the front right now. But this went on, this cat and mouse game, for many kilometers early in the race. Nobody wanted to let the early break go because with the nasty snowy conditions, sometimes that early break can stay away. The peloton is not able to get organized and they can't bring somebody back.
We just talked in the open about the top contenders all within 13 seconds or so of one another, but there's a lot of other guys who are within half a minute, even a minute, and if you get away on a day like this with the nasty weather, things can really change in the overall standing, so you have to be careful. And with this being the Queen stage, the most difficult mountain stage of the entire race, everybody wanted to take their shot, wanted to try to get in the mix, and that's why the peloton and the group of main challengers for the overall wanted to keep a tight, close leash on everyone who was trying to make the move.
And these moments in the race are actually quite chaotic because the general classification men are trying to keep tabs with their teammates on every combination of riders that's attacking. And they know that they're eventually going to have to let something go because you can't chase everything all day long. So they're trying to wait for the perfect combination of guys to get away, to stay away, and then bring them back. Steph Clement here for the Belkin squad, now trying his luck. But it's this numbers game, and you want some guys that are further down on the general classification to get away when you finally let someone go.
Luka Mezgec had won each of the first 2 stages in a field sprint. He was the early leader in the first couple of days of this race, but he gave the leader's jersey over to Joaquim Rodriguez at the end of yesterday's stage 3 because of Rodriguez's win on the first summit finish. So Rodriguez, part of the Katusha squad, now wearing a white and green striped leader's jersey. His Katusha team in the red and white there on the left-hand side of the screen has the responsibility to keep the brakes in check.
You really need to look back at yesterday when you see all the Katusha men on the front today. Rodriguez told his teammates very early yesterday, he said he was feeling very good and he really thought he could win the race, and he actually said after the stage that he begged his teammates to keep it together. Well, now he's the race leader, and now the guys have to keep it together. You can see them eyeing every guy that attacks, and they just make the mental note. Does that matter for GC or not? If it doesn't, well, I'm going to keep going steady. If it does, then we got to get on that wheel.
Five climbs altogether on the day. 3 Category 1s, 1 Category 2, and the beyond classification climb at the very end. That's 12 kilometers in length, almost an 8% average with a maximum slope of 12%. That's what was in store as they started earlier in the day. And no doubt a stage that could ultimately shape the final standings. Wouldn't necessarily put them in concrete, but at the end of today's stage, if you've got that leader's jersey, you have a good chance of winning this race overall.
That's why everybody knows today is so incredibly critical. And you throw in the snow and the very cold temperatures at the summit at the finish, under 30 degrees. And that's going to add up pretty quickly to a very painful and very decisive finish.
Well, some interesting dynamics for this stage. We mentioned before, Nairo Quintana won on this stage last year, but he's been battling a virus this year, not completely over it. Chris Froome hasn't really trained at altitude yet this year, and for the first time they are riding to a higher elevation of 7,200 feet today. Joaquim Rodriguez has been training in the Canary Islands, so he's been at altitude. He's gone through this already through his training. He's got the race lead. He seems to be in good shape to defend that. So those are some of the things going on as they head towards the big mountains.
And at this point, it was the Caja Rural rider, Antonio Piedra, leading the Movistar rider, Jose Herrada, 2 Spaniards. And of course, when you're racing in your home country, you always have that additional motivation.
All right, so these 2 riders, Piedra and Herrada, getting away early, establishing a margin over the field. And now we take you further into the race, down to the final 34 kilometers, the summit of the second to last climb on the stage.
It's actually a very tough climb. It's a Cat 1, 14% max on the climb, a little bit earlier down below where they are now, but small roads, and you can see how many legs are covered up with full leg warmers trying to keep warm. It's a little bit harder to move your legs when they have that on, but it definitely keeps them a lot warmer. At
this point, it was a 4-man breakaway, but they would not stay out there all that long with this peloton in pursuit. Tinkoff, the team in the yellow, and that's the team of Alberto Contador, sitting in second place on the general classification.
And Steph Clement here, still grinding away in the breakaway. We saw him earlier in the race being very active. It looks like Rory Sutherland, the big Aussie who spends his off-season in Boulder, Colorado, on the front for Alberto Contador's Tinkoff Saxo team.
And again, the breakaway that didn't have much time at this point as they get up into some of the narrow roads here before going over the summit. You see the fog starting to creep in. The weather would get much worse the rest of the way. So these 4 at this point trying to hold an advantage. Contador sitting second wheel back in the peloton behind Rory Sutherland. Joaquim Rodriguez there for Katusha, TJ Van Garderen. So all of the top riders, including Chris Froome, near the front of that group as we now take you to 24 kilometers remaining. The snow flying sideways with the wind blowing here, and all headed towards the last climb that would start with 12 kilometers left to go to the summit finish. And at this point, the four-man breakaway had come apart, and this man here, Thomas de Gendt, who was part of that group, was left on his own. He was the leader, riding solo, headed towards that last climb, towards the Volta 2000.
De Gendt, a man with a very bright history of long, impossible solo breaks that he's converted into race wins, like 2 years ago, winning the final summit finish in the Giro d'Italia with an incredible solo move, but it wasn't enough to win him the overall general classification.
He's over 7 minutes back on the general classification after only 3 days this year at the Volta a Catalunya, but trying for a signature win on one of the top climbs in the Pyrenees today. And now these are the two behind him chasing. Jose Serpa Perez in front, Ruben Plaza of Movistar behind. These guys within a minute right now of de Gendt at this stage.
And they come out of the field in pursuit of de Gendt, as the other three men from the breakaway that were with de Gendt had been absorbed by the peloton.
All right, so de Gendt out front, the two chasers, and then the field. Everybody within just about a minute or so of one another, so not a lot of time and a long climb at this point still to go. And just over 20 kilometers from the finish. De Gendt still trying to hang on. Quite a long ways to go still before the start of that final climb, which would begin 12 kilometers before the end of the stage. Some rolling terrain, some flat roads, but already wet from the snow and the rain and the wind that was prevalent most of the stage. Early on, as we saw, there were some sunny, dry conditions, but it didn't take long for the nasty weather to kick in.
Thomas de Gendt has traditionally been very good when the weather conditions are nasty. A strong Belgian typically loves this type of condition, and Thomas de Gendt is no exception to that rule. So it was a long solo day for the man for the Omega Pharma Quick-Step team. Just out there trying to stay motivated, but knowing that he had that 12-kilometer climb awaiting him, and all the way up into much heavier snow at times, and visibility down incredibly short distances, 20, 30 feet in places ahead of him.
And again, no time bonuses on the summit finishes. None yesterday, none today for the riders. Two chasers still not able to make it across at this point to de Gendt. I tell you what, being by yourself this far out with such a long climb still to go, I know he's kind of developed a reputation for this sort of approach, but tactically it's not the best way to go.
Yeah, sometimes you find yourself in a no-win situation, and that's where he is now. He was with a group that was not very far in front of the field, and now he's off on his own. And you just try and make the best of a situation that really is not a very good one as a professional cyclist.
So de Gendt slogging away on his own, trying to get up this final climb. Still hasn't started. Have a long way to go to get up into the fog and snow if he wants to win this Queen's Stage. With Romain Bardet of AG2R on his wheel. Amazingly, those were the first two to come out of the fog at the front of this race. Not Chris Froome, not Joaquim Rodriguez, not Nairo Quintana, no Alberto Contador, TJ Van Garderen, who faded at the Tour de France last year, but now riding away from all of his top contenders for the Tour yellow jersey this year on one of the toughest climbs, most challenging days you could imagine in the Pyrenees Mountains.
Phenomenal riding by him, but then it was Bardet who jumped a little bit early. into that final corner and really put TJ in a little bit of trouble.
The other riders that I just mentioned, Rodriguez and the others just behind, but they couldn't catch him. TJ Van Garderen wins his first ever World Tour stage race. Andrew Talansky of Garmin Sharp coming through. Chris Froome of Team Sky. Contador had crossed Joaquim Rodriguez. But TJ Van Garderen gets a signature stage win at the Volta a Catalunya.
In just nasty conditions. Really, the cold was the big one. Thankfully for them, it was so cold it wasn't very wet. But TJ absolutely spent at the end of a landmark win for the American.
Well, it's not July, but it's a big step towards the Tour de France with the list of names he beat out on this stage.
And TJ, with his BMC team, is now coming into this season the leader for their Tour de France squad, even though in the past couple of years he's been riding in the service of Cadel Evans, the winner in 2011 at the Tour de France. This year, 2014, they're lining up behind the American, and this has got to be a very good mental boost for him.
Something you didn't see, there were other attacks throughout that climb. TJ was just one of the final attacks, but other guys were on the move, and TJ was patient in this stage before accelerating away to get that stage win.
Steve, quite often, that's what you want to do. You want to let the guys beat each other up a little bit. You want to have Contador attack and Rodriguez to chase him down and Quintana to maybe put in a surge, etc. And you just sit back and they forget about you just that little bit. But more importantly, they're in the wind, one guy attacking, one guy chasing, and you're sitting on the wheel, following wheels, and then you put in the killer blow at the end of the race.
Chris Froome attacked. Contador responded earlier, passing Froome. At that point, Van Garderen was just waiting. He waited until the final steep part of the climb before launching his move that eventually turned out to be the most decisive of the day.
Ivan Basso just finishing up 2 minutes plus off the pace, but you saw when TJ walked past that scrum of reporters with Alberto Contador, this is last year's winner, Dan Martin. Contador looked over at TJ and smiled and congratulated him. This is a big win for the American. To beat that caliber of riders, the biggest day on the bike for him, for sure.
He's won the Amgen Tour of California, the USA Pro Challenge, but never a victory in Europe like this for TJ Van Garderen. There's Alberto Contador, who, again, did attack on that final climb, but unable to get the win for the second day in a row. Still maintains a high general classification spot, and you can imagine that Contador will still be looking to attack in the days to come here.
That's one thing about Alberto that I like, which is he looks for ways to win outside of the summit finish where everybody is looking at him. That's how he won the Vuelta 2 years ago, attacking on a medium mountain day.
So this was the end of the stage once again. TJ had already passed Bardet, who clung to his wheel. And then at the very end, after Bardet had come around TJ, he won the mini sprint for the victory, with Contador coming in third, Joaquim Rodriguez fourth in that white leader's jersey. TJ getting the win, and we'll see the overall standings now after 4 days when we come back here on Universal Sports. So TJ beats out Romain Bardet, who finishes second. Alberto Contador third. Joaquim Rodriguez rounding out the top four. Nairo Quintana finished fifth. How about American Andrew Talansky? He was there just outside the top five. Chris Froome, after an early attack, he finished 8 seconds behind TJ.
TJ with a lot to be happy about, standing up there in the snow on the stage. This is a victory that he's been looking for the last couple of years. This is a big one for him.
So, despite the win, TJ does not take the race lead. Again, there were no time bonuses on the summit finish. He does move into third place, just 7 seconds behind the leader, Joaquim Rodriguez, who maintains the overall lead from yesterday. Alberto Contador second, as Rodriguez shivering in the cold, but yet another day in the leader's jersey. He survives the Queen stage and now is in position to perhaps win his second ever Volta a Catalunya, but it's not over.
He's certainly in pole position. The remaining days are not nearly as tough as the past couple of days, but it's not over yet.
Next up, as he defends this leader's jersey, tomorrow, stage number 5.
Tomorrow really does look like a day for the sprinters to come back once again with the little sting there, the Category 2 climb at the end. The Lila, 580 meters tall. It's nothing like what they went up today, but that may hurt the sprinters and let somebody get away for a late victory.
Huge day of top names slugging it out on the toughest mountain of this year's Volta a Catalunya. And in the end, American TJ Van Garderen, his biggest single win in Europe, as he delivers a knockout blow to his other Tour de France contenders for the race this July. It's the 5th day and the longest day of this year's Volta a Catalunya. Just inside of 220 kilometers in northeastern Spain. Steve Schlanger with Todd Gogolski. Here are the standings after 4 days of racing. Rodriguez is the leader for the second day in a row. Alberto Contador in second, and TJ Van Garderen with his win yesterday, now in third, just 7 seconds off the pace. But a lot of top names within 20 seconds of the lead on a partly cloudy day with the temperature in the low 50s. And we pick it up with 2 leaders, Marcus Berghardt of the BMC team, Georg Preidler of Giant Shimano. The 2 riders here out front with just inside of 40 kilometers left to go. And they have a lead of just a few minutes over the main field, which you see on the right. That graphic is wrong. They don't lead by over 5 minutes. It's much less than that right now. And there are 2 chasers in between, Pierre Rolland and Steven Kruijswijk, who are between the main field on the right and the 2 leaders on the left.
And I would look for these 2 men off the front to be sucked up before the finish, and this to come down to another reduced bunch finish today.
The race heading southwest today, and that Category 2 near the finish that summits with 9K to go. That is the only categorized climb on today's stage. The red line shows you where the riders are right now, downhill from here to the base of that last climb. They've already gone past the 2 intermediate sprints, so it definitely looks like a day that could come down to some kind of a sprint. But when you have a climb like that so close to the finish, it adds a layer of unpredictability, because several riders will no doubt try to use that as a springboard to get away late in the stage.
Well, these are the 2 men in pursuit of our leaders, Steven Kruijswijk and Pierre Rolland. It is Kruijswijk on the front right now, Rolland following him. And Rolland actually put a dig in on the first summit finish back in stage number 3. But today he is off the front in this move, trying to hold on all the way to the finish. Fortunately, 2 men up the road from them.
Almost 220 kilometers on today's profile, the longest stage by far of this year's 7 days of racing. 4 in the books. This is the first of the final 3. And now our 2 leaders maintaining the pace, Berghardt and Preidler, still with a few minutes of time over the field. Not so much a stage for the top general classification riders today. These last 2 stages, 3 and 4 with mountaintop finishes, really shuffled the top of the standings. And now it's curious to wonder if the remaining 3 stages are going to do much to the GC, because we could have a sprint today. We'll likely have some kind of a field sprint tomorrow, and then it's a circuit race with some hills on Sunday in Barcelona on the 7th and final day. So how much more do you see the top of the standings changing, Gogo?
Very little, Steve, but you got this Cat 2 coming up late in the day today. We've already talked about it topping out under 6 miles from the finish. So look for somebody to try some kind of a sneaky little move there and see if they can just get lucky. And also the final day with all the circuits over Montjuic and Barcelona, even though it's only a Cat 3 climb, they do it multiple times, and we usually get a little bit of separation there. And realize at the top of the general classification standings, we're talking only a handful of seconds. So if Contador can get a time bonus, he's only 4 seconds down in the GC, then that could make all the difference. So watch these guys trying all kinds of stuff, especially the last day.
Our main contenders for the general classification are back here in the peloton right now. It's something you don't often see. Guys at the top of the general classification going for those sorts of bonus seconds on a relatively flat stage when it comes down to a field sprint of some kind, but they're forced to do it because of the way the race lays out this year at the Volta a Catalunya.
Yeah, and they're only going to go for those intermediate sprints when things are really close, or those time bonuses at the end when things are really close. And that's what we have. We have a race which is absolutely just neck and neck with some of the men. And look at this. Our first two groups coming together. Sans, Steven Kruijswijk. It looks like Pierre Rolland might be making it across, but Kruijswijk looks like he has blown up.
So that is Pierre Rolland in the green, just in the background, about to catch on to the back of Marcus Berghardt and Georg Preidler there at the front of the race. Over 30 kilometers from the finish. 10, 6, and 4 seconds, the time bonus for the first 3 at the finish. We didn't have time bonus the last 2 days on the mountaintop finishes. So we're back into bonus territory like we were on stages 1 and 2.
Well, Pierre Rolland looks like he used Kruijswijk for a little bit of traction there. After Kruijswijk took a nice pull on the climb, then he jumped across, but you can see they're barely in front of the peloton. To get back to your time bonus topic that you brought up, Steve, even though there are 3 intermediate sprints every day, there are only time bonuses at 1 of them, and they're 3, 2, and 1. And that time bonus sprint sometimes is early in the stage, sometimes is late in the stage, but there are not 9 total seconds of intermediate time bonuses up on every stage, or only 3.
And the peloton has really made up some time on the leaders. Now just about a half a minute back with 33 kilometers left to go, so they are moving back in the field. And a 3-man lead group now with Pierre Rolland, Georg Preidler, and Marcus Berghardt. You see them on the left. So if they had any hope of staying away on this stage number 5, it is evaporating rapidly. Lampre, Cannondale among the teams leading the chase with 33K left to go on the 5th day at the Volta a Catalunya. With one categorized climb coming up near the finish of the stage, a Cat 2 that will summit 9 kilometers from the finish itself. And there they are in the background, the field about to swallow up Berghardt, Rolland, and Preidler. They took a chunk of time out of this leading group. Took less than 10 kilometers to erase a deficit of over 5 minutes.
Well, the lead group was hurting, just kind of chugging along, especially when they only had 2 guys. Ultimately, they got Pierre Rolland up there and breathed a little bit of extra relief into them, but the field was really turning up the pace. And at this point, it's a lot of the men for Cannondale all over the front of the peloton.
And Cannondale riding for their sprinter, Daniele Ratto.
Ratto has been right up there in some of the other days where they came to a sprint finish. 3rd in stage number 2 was his best one. 6th in stage number 1, and they want another crack at it.
And that's it. The 3-man group has been caught. What was once an 8-man breakaway earlier in the stage, reduced to 2 before Rolland caught on. It was 3 for a short time, and now this is the front of the race. Everyone together, led largely by Cannondale. 27 kilometers left to go on the stage. Lampre, the team mixed in with Cannondale, riding for Roberto Ferrari, the Italian sprinter.
Ferrari has also been close, as good as 2nd on stage 2. It was a little further back on the first stage in 8th, and those were the other 2 days that were field sprints. And that's certainly looking like what we're going to have here today as well. A little bit of a crosswind for the riders. It's out of their left, our right. So you can see how the peloton is echeloned over to the gutter. But it's not a severe crosswind, so it does not look like it's going to blow the field up.
And Garmin Sharp, Nathan Brown back here alongside Ryder Hesjedal. Garmin Sharp team leading the team classification, for what that's worth, at the race this week.
And Ryder Hesjedal there getting a little bit of a push as he takes a natural break. Usually they try not to put that on the TV show, however.
Cameras this time focusing right on in it. That's not the position you want to be in, though. I mean, behind them with the wind blowing, all that. I mean, I think you'd want to be ahead of it.
Yeah, well, they were on the upwind side.
Didn't look like it to me. Lamprey now at the front, 25K from the finish, taking over for Cannondale. Long way out to lead it for your sprinter. How often do we see teams taking up the charge with this far to go to the finish, missing out when it comes down to it at the very end?
Well, they only have a couple of guys for Lamprey up in this mix, predominantly Cannondale men. So sometimes they'll use up a couple of their guys well in advance of the lead out and save their faster guys for later.
Cannondale all in at the front, trying to lead Daniele Arato to a sprint finish at the end. 94th edition of Spain's oldest stage race. And the first of two pretty big stage races in Spain over the course of the next few weeks. País Vasco, the Tour of the Basque Country, coming up at the beginning of April as well. And the breakaway that we saw earlier has been caught. So everyone is together, and this is one of those interesting scenarios where you have the break being caught so far from the finish that you know you're going to see attacks at some point the rest of the way. You just don't know exactly where they're going to come. Still 20K left to go. This entire field is together as one, pretty compact. Cannondale, the team in the green, they're leading the way for now because they want to set it up for a field sprint. But you just know that somebody is going to use that Category 2 climb in the final dozen kilometers to try and get away from the rest of these riders.
And Steve, when you look at the general classification after yesterday, the top 6 are only 17 seconds apart. So Rodriguez enjoying a slim 4-second margin over Contador, 7 seconds over yesterday's winner, TJ Van Garderen. There's a 10-second bonus at the finish. Guys have to try something if they want to try and wrestle the lead of this race away.
But it's going to be hard to get away because it's not like the general classification riders are just fighting amongst themselves. They've got the sprinters teams to contend with who also want the stage win.
Sure, and if you look at what's happened in the previous sprint stages, stages 1 and 2, Luka Mezgec for Giant Shimano has been undefeated. So he's flying high. He's got good morale. And when I talked with his director before the stage started, Eddie Ingles told me that he's a really level-headed guy. It's only his second year in the World Tour, but he doesn't get very nervous. He's very appreciative to his teammates when they do the work, so they're highly motivated to help him win. We might be seeing a lot more of him in these races in the future.
So everyone content to let Cannondale do the work right now. And if I was Daniele Arato, the sprinter on the Cannondale team, I would be concerned. This is not the scenario that I want. My team doing all the work to bring back the breakaway and still at the front now with still 19 kilometers left to go before I do my job.
Wow, look at that traffic circle. I'd say the guys that went right went wrong, as the men on the left had a much shorter direction around the traffic circle.
And a lot of guys are being shot to the back of the group now because of that.
It's amazing how corners and traffic circles impact bike races so often. Guys get off course, they miss corners, they go the wrong way at traffic circles. We've seen it in the finales of Grand Tours that we've called, Steve, in the Giro d'Italia, where guys leading it out went right, they were supposed to go left. It makes a big impact in a race quite often. Now today, They're a little bit further from the finish, so in theory, it won't change. But remember, before the traffic circle, it was all Cannondale on the front.
They went the wrong way.
Now they're all in the back of the field.
They went the wrong way, so they're back here trying to work their way back up to the front. So a lot of times you see a traffic circle, and whether you go right or left, if it's a straight road, it doesn't matter because it's equidistant. But this time, going to the left was a much shorter distance than going to the right and looping all the way back.
And that's really up to the race itself to give good directions. They either need to block off the wrong way, or they need to have their marshals very visibly pointing one direction and standing in the wrong way, just making it virtually impossible, because these guys are 176 starters in this race. You know, we've lost a handful of them, but you can't really tell when you're back in the pack. You're basically following the leader, and if the front guy makes a mistake, if he's a little bit cross-eyed from riding too hard, a bunch of guys will follow him the wrong way.
You know, some big, pretty well-paved and wide roads as they start up the Category 2 climb now. And this climb that will summit with 9K left to go in the stage. A little more than a half dozen kilometers long, averaging 5% with a max of 7%. You saw the pertinent numbers just a moment ago. It's the only categorized climb on the stage today.
And Steve, the Cannondale boys made it back up to the front and kept riding. So they are continuing to do what they are doing for Daniele Ratto. And if you were saying he should be nervous before for all the work they were doing, well, now he's got to be even more nervous. They took a wrong turn. They had to work their way back up through the field, and now they're still riding for him on the front. He better deliver, or they're going to be pretty sad.
Now that kilometer to go graphic, a little bit off, not exactly 17K, a little less than that actually remaining as they start this climb.
Saxo Tinkoff moving up the right. Actually, Tinkoff Saxo this year. And they're in those yellow kits. So you got to keep your eye on Contador. If you're Joaquim Rodriguez, there's one wheel you want to be on right now, and that's Alberto Contador. Rodriguez lost the Vuelta 2 years ago to Contador in a medium mountain stage. Lost track of Alberto. Alberto got away from him, went on a raid and a rampage for that matter, and won the stage. It was the only stage he won in the entire Vuelta, and it propelled him to the overall win.
That's one way to go. Slightly quicker to the finish on the bullet train. These boys having to work in the wind, and Cannondale back on the front of the peloton now after taking the wrong way around a roundabout. Took some more effort to get to this point, but the guys in green are leading the way once more with 16K remaining. On the left-hand side of the screen, the BMC team in the red and black, the team of TJ Van Garderen. You see him in the white sunglasses. He's got two teammates in front of him, but riding near the front where he should be after a terrific stage win yesterday on the Queen stage, a summit finish through the fog and snow, a landmark win for the American Van Garderen.
It was a huge day for TJ and his BMC squad, and they've got to be feeling pretty proud of what they put together and what he finished off yesterday. TJ, after the race, actually said that he felt the cold helped him. He felt like some of the other general classification men suffered a little bit more in the cold, and he also played it very crafty. He let them attack and counter-attack each other, guys like Rodriguez and Contador, and then he pounced late.
It's a long way to the Tour, but when you can beat Froome, Contador, Rodriguez on a summit finish, that is confidence that you're going to take with you as you build to your biggest goal of the season. Team in the blue, FDJ. Team in the green, Cannondale. Team in the red and black, BMC. And in the blue there on the right-hand side of the screen, that's Canadian rider Hejdo of the Garmin-Sharp team and former winner of the Giro d'Italia. And it looks like he's coming to the front here. And
indeed,
trying to ride off the front.
Yeah, kind of a casual acceleration there. Didn't come by him with a lot of flailing arms or anything. He just sort of rolled to the front and then picked it up. And the Cannondale guys let him go. This is a little bit of an uphill grind. So the winner of the Giro d'Italia 2 seasons ago, now just off the front here with 9 miles to go in the race.
Alberto Contador in the yellow, working his way up through the field. And still chasing his fellow Spaniard, Joaquim Rodriguez, in the overall standings. There he is in the leader's white and green jersey. Rodriguez, the winner of the Volta a Catalunya back in 2010. And this was his move at the Vuelta. Stage 19 last year, riding away from Contador and accelerating in to the stage victory. Rodriguez as good on an uphill finish as anyone in the field. Looking to win the Volta a Catalunya for the 2nd time, and in a good spot now with just these 3 stages left to go.
And in addition to those 11 Grand Tour stage wins, Steve, he's won stages of all 3 Grand Tours. Not many guys can say they've done that.
Ryder Hesjedal dropping the field, gaining a margin, and trying to solo in the final 15K to the finish on the only climb of the day here on stage number 5. It doesn't look like he's getting away from everyone here. The gap just a few seconds, and actually he's losing time to the field that's about to reel him in.
This is not going to be the race-winning move for the Canadian strongman, unfortunately for him, as more guys from the field look like they're starting to make things happen as well.
And as Astana's Leo Westra, who's just passed him. Now Westra trying to go away.
We're still several kilometers from the top of this climb.
Leo Westra is a guy who can launch late-stage attacks and make them stick, but still have to be somewhat suspicious about this one. A few kilometers of climbing left to go, and a hungry group of sprinters teams not willing to let anyone ride away for the most part. Other riders passing Hesjedal as well, as this is Westra, who's now at the front of the stage.
He's churning up this hill very well, but it's a little bit windy out there and very hard to go it alone on these big roads like this. It's easy for guys to maneuver behind. It's easy for guys to rally their teams to get lined up on the front. Relatively easy. Nothing is easy in professional cycling because there's a lot of fighting for position. Looks like another Garmin Sharp rider leading the chase there. Just swinging off of that chase group of 3.
Now today's stage finishing in the town of Valls, the hometown of Xavi Tondo, the former professional rider who died in a tragic accident a few years ago. One of the most popular Spanish riders, and they are honoring him today with a finish in his hometown.
Yeah, let's just be clear, it was not a cycling accident, but it was a huge shock to everybody, and his team as well as the entire professional peloton really missed him and mourned the loss of Xavi Tondo.
All right, so here's some activity on the right-hand side of the screen. Several riders trying to chase down Leo Westra. He's on the far right. Cofidis rider just behind. Garmin Sharp rider here, and that is Philip Gaiman, number 8. And then the Cofidis rider, Danny Navarro here in the red, who's now second on the road behind the man in the turquoise, Leo Westra, our leader.
So several men from several different teams throwing their hat into this, trying to stir up something and make it happen. And if this group can get together, and if they stay really motivated, this could make for a very interesting finale. Gaiman, the man sitting third in this group right now, right behind the Cofidis rider. He actually was attacking a lot yesterday and unable to ultimately make the selection that got away the early break of the day, but he was active. And it's really nice to see the American new over in the Pro Tour being so aggressive in these World Tour races.
It's like a group of 6 forming near the front with Westra leading the way.
Oh, man. Just brings me right back to look at a guy like this and just thinking he's got only a handful of seconds. He's got a couple more kilometers to climb. He knows he's facing almost the impossible to stay away. And he's just turning himself inside out, trying to stay in front, to stay on top of that gear where everything in his body is telling him to stop.
Now, it looked like we were going to have a group come together, but it's splitting up here with Westra still maintaining an advantage. Behind him, Danny Navarro, and then a Team Skyrider is there, too. So other riders coming across from the field, but not one big group forming at the front as of yet.
That goes to show just how pinned all these guys are. They're right up at the red line, and they're just trying to close it down to Westra and also catch each other, and the field is just right there as well. So this is crunch time in the peloton too. That's an Orica rider sitting in the second spot. You already mentioned a Sky man sitting third, and they have just picked up Phil Gaiman.
And these riders about to pick up Lebo Westra, it looks like.
A real grind of a climb here. A big gear, fast climb.
Oh, there's Alberto Contador in the yellow with an acceleration here. He's going to go to the front.
Oh, and look at the response in the peloton right at the front. It's Movistar for their team leader, Nairo Quintana, but Alberto lighting things up. Big ring in the climb.
And right on his wheel in the brown and white of AG2R, that is Gianluca Brambilla. Contador wants bonus time. Trailing by 4 seconds in the general classification to Joaquim Rodriguez, the overall race leader. There's 10, 6, and 4 seconds to the first 3 riders across at the finish. And not a lot of big mountains left in this race, so Contador has to take his chances, take his shot where he can. And now look at this. Joaquim Rodriguez has moved up into the 3rd spot right behind Brambilla, who is right behind Contador.
This is crunch time for sure. When second place in the race goes up the road, everybody reacts. TJ Van Garderen is there for BMC in the black and red, yesterday's winner. And is this Fuglsang going on the attack now?
Yeah, that is Jakob Fuglsang, who's made a move. And no response to it.
That's perfect timing because he's not one of the main general classification contenders. So you take advantage of them looking at each other and you launch the counter attack. We saw him launching an attack early with 2K to go on stage number 3, the first summit finish. He got caught. Now he's trying it again here on stage number 5.
1 minute back in the general classification.
So he's far enough down in the GC. The main general classification contenders don't have to panic. They can let other guys do the chasing. Still a big ask to stay away to the finish. Wide open like this, much more difficult for a man to get away. You can see the peloton split up into some large groups on the climb. But one guy on his own, he would prefer to have a really narrow, really technical, nasty descent, because then he might have a little bit of a shot at it. Wide open like this, very tough. Guys can sit in the draft. They can sit back 10 wheels, coasting while the other men on the front are chasing. And then they could bring their fresh legs to the front, and they could do some turns on the front.
Inside of 10K to the finish now. And once they get down to the final 2 kilometers, it really starts to get interesting. There are 3 turns inside of 2K to go. Inside of 1K, you have 2 turns in succession, a quick right-hander, then a left-hander. It's 500 meters uphill until they hit the 1K mark. Then they go downhill to 500 meters left to go to the finish, and then it's slightly uphill to the finish line itself. So some turns, some undulation, and a slight uphill finish at the very end of the stage.
And as they plummet on this descent at speeds just about 50 miles an hour, they got to be thinking when they're coming into the finish, if they catch full song, they need to have their lead-out trains dialed in outside of 2K to go, because in that final kilometer with those 2 corners you just mentioned, you want to be very close to the front.
Now with the sprinters team so motivated to get a stage win, just so hard for anybody to get away from this field. They're trying, and most notably this man, Jakob Fuglsang, attempting to make it an individual time trial all the way to the finish, but we just saw in the background that it's only a few seconds to the rest of the field.
Look at how low he's getting his torso, and then he just put his forearms up on the top of his bars. That's basically simulating the time trial bar position where they have those bar extensions in the middle, and by putting your arms in the middle like that and now this tuck, he's just reducing his frontal area so that there's less wind resistance and he can keep his speed up. Now the challenge with tucking like this, besides the obvious if you hit a bump, is that you're not moving your legs, and your legs, he was already making a maximum effort, so then you stop turning them abruptly and you tuck, and then they just completely load up and they feel like mud when you get going again.
$7K left to go, and now it's a question of which of the sprinters teams is really going to step forward and do the work here. We saw Cannondale earlier before the original breakaway was brought back. They were riding at the front and had just about their entire team up there riding for Daniele Ratto. What about Giant Shimano trying to get Luca Mezgec the hat trick, his 3rd stage win? What about Lampre and Roberto Ferrari? There's a few different sprinters, not the pure sprinters, but some of the hybrid sprinters who would like a shot here.
Just if you look at history, I would point to Giant Shimano trying to take control of things here. They didn't have to work all day because they had Georg Preidler in the break, so that worked according to plan for them. They have a really good lead-out team that they've worked on for the last couple of seasons, with Marcel Kittel getting 5 stages of the Tour de France. So they're really good at the lead out in general. Yeah, they have a little bit of a different cast of characters here, but they have the same directors, and those directors are working with this group to hone them to be a great lead out team. So I would suspect that when we see a team wrestle the front of this group away, or the front of the peloton, I would suspect it to be Giant Shimano.
Any chance Fuglsang makes it to the finish by himself?
I mean, sure, there's always a chance, but it's somewhere between slim and none. And I mean, and slim meaning really slim, like 0.1% or something like that. It's virtually impossible.
Yeah, look at where it is now. I mean, they're closing in. They're going to get him here momentarily, it looks like.
Just the uphill from 1.5K to go to 1K to go, just a little bump uphill would be virtually impossible for him to make it up, because he's got nothing left, and now he just gave up.
And here they come rolling through. We have Astana, FDJ, Orica among the teams there at the front, but even though this is the front of the race now, no one team has taken control.
No, very close to the end. 3 miles to go in the bike race. And no real contention at the front. The other team that you would think might hit it would be Omega Pharma Quick-Step. They've got Julian Alaphilippe, who has been knocking on the door for a stage win.
Alberto Contador on the right-hand side of the screen. There you see him with the yellow-rimmed glasses. He's got Rory Sutherland in front of him. And Contador tried to make that attack on that climb in order to perhaps get away and steal some bonus time at the finish. He'd still like to do it and like to mix it up in a field sprint, but the way things are going here, there's no way he's going to get into the top 3.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty tough, but 10, 6, and 4. If he gets third, 4-second bonus, and Rodriguez, if he doesn't get anything, then they're tied on time. Then they go to the count back, the sum of their stage places, to settle the tiebreaker because there's no time trial.
That's just too many guys who can sprint faster than Contador and the other top general classification riders, and they're all still in this group. So
yeah, it doesn't
very slim.
Doesn't make any sense that Contador would get a time bonus at this point. But now he has Chris Anker Sorensen on the front, flogging himself. And still a big mix of riders here. No real one team with strength in numbers.
And coming into the town of Valls in northeastern Spain after taking a southwesterly route today for the longest stage of this year's Volta a Catalunya, coming in just inside of 220 kilometers. It's a long day for a stage race. All right, 3K left to go, and we're coming up on the area where it's going to get interesting. A succession of turns, some undulation, slight uphill finish. 3 turns inside the final 2K, 2 turns inside the last kilometer. So we'll see how the technical nature of the course affects this full field that now has 2K left to go to the finish.
When we say slight uphill at the finish, we mean slight uphill. It's only about 5 or 10 meters in that last half a kilometer, just barely going uphill.
Now Katusha, the team of overall leader Joaquim Rodriguez, is at the front.
So Rodriguez also in the mix. He's pretty punchy. I wouldn't rule him out. I would say he's typically better in this type of a finish than Contador, but really you can't expect a general classification man to get it. The guys who are here specifically to win field sprints, they've got to do better than the GC men today.
That's the first turn. Well over 5 hours in. And closing in on the last kilometer of racing.
After 135 miles, and it looks like coming up the left, rider Hejjedal taking another shot at it.
Once again, his second big acceleration of the day. Can he possibly get away here at the end of the stage? They're trying to track him down. It looks like they'll get him.
It's a gutsy move for sure.
Here's the last kilometer. 2 more turns, though, to navigate.
And look who's bringing him back. It's Giant Shimano has finally come to the front, followed by a couple of the Omega Pharma Quick Step men. And then Orica Green Edge.
Lee Howard missed out in the first 2 sprints for Orica Green Edge. Luka Mezgec with his team here at the front, looking to make it 3 wins in 3 field sprints at this year's Volta a Catalunya. Safely through the turns, and now they set up for the sprints. A little bit downhill and slightly uphill to the line. Luka Mezgec there at the front for Giant Shimano. Who's going to challenge him? Lee Howard coming up for Orica Green Edge as well. Julian Alaphilippe is there for Omega Pharma Quick Step. And now Luka Mezgec goes for Giant Shimano up the middle of the road. Looking for the hat trick at the Volta a Catalunya. Anybody going to get him? No, it is Luka Mezgec. His 3rd sprint win in as many field sprints this week at the Volta.
He makes it look so easy, coming from 10 riders back, and nobody has the speed of him.
The Slovenian making his mark. Biggest week of his career so far.
Well, as we bring you back, no real surprise to see Mezgec getting his 3rd stage. But the bigger surprise to me is Alberto Contador in the yellow, coming across in 6th place, trying to get one of those time bonuses.
Julian Alaphilippe was 2nd, Samuel Dumoulin of AG2R 3rd, but Luka Mezgec untouchable in the sprint this week. Wins his 3rd stage Doesn't change the top of the general classification, though. Joaquin Rodriguez still the leader over Contador, who missed out on the time bonus at the end. TJ Van Gardner in third. Rodriguez the leader now with 2 days left to go.
These guys are definitely running out of time if they want to try and take the lead back. And one thing about tomorrow's stage, it's not the mountains, but forecast heavy winds. And if the winds are heavy, we could see a big battle for the general classification.
Of Volta a Catalunya here on Universal Sports. 172 kilometers today for this penultimate day of racing. Steve Schlanger with Todd Gagulski, and you were looking down at the largest breakaway we've seen in the race so far. 9 men out at the front of the stage right now. The red line is where the race is right now. They've already gone over the only categorized climb of the day, a Cat 3. Still one intermediate sprint to go, and that Cat 3 climb summited with just inside of 60 kilometers left to go in the stage. Joaquin Rodriguez, the overall leader, but Gogo, still a lot of the top names within 20 seconds of Rodriguez. The issue for them is there's not a lot of terrain and not a lot of stages where they can make up that deficit.
And today is a day where the general classification men, if it were not windy, would be saving everything for tomorrow. We have 8 finishing circuits on Montjuic and the circuit in Barcelona with some hills. But today, winds, some have reported over 40 miles an hour out of the east. The opening 20 kilometers an hour, I was talking with the director Lionel Marie for the Giant Shimano team. He said they were going 43 miles an hour in the caravan. So now everybody's on their high alert nerves today because they do not want to get caught in some sort of a crash or a split because of the crosswinds.
3.5 minutes between our 9 leaders on the left, the field on the right for this stage that heads counterclockwise today, making almost a full loop and ending just about 25 miles southwest of Barcelona. And that is where the race will finish tomorrow, a circuit race in and around Barcelona, a very hilly circuit that could be decisive in terms of changing the general classification if it's raced a certain way.
And Steve, as you look at this group here, the breakaway group, this is one of those tailwind sections, so they're absolutely flying down the road, but other parts of the course, they could have a crosswind or a headwind, and those huge winds would really be a mess.
No overall general classification threats in the breakaway. Pierre Rolland, the highest placed rider, but he's over 8 minutes back and just over 30K left in the stage. Largest breakaway we've seen at this year's race, and they are motivated because a break has not stayed away in all of the stages to this point. The break has been caught, and it's either been a field sprint or the top general classification riders on the mountaintop finishes have settled it the way they typically do.
In this group of 9, there are 2 men in here with red jerseys, and the one moving up on the left side of that group right now, sitting in 3rd or 4th position, well, I guess he's in 5th, is Steph Clement, and he's in a special jersey, the red jersey, as the mountains leader. And he has picked up the maximum points on the category 3 climb today to pad that lead just a little bit in the mountains classification.
Now top 6 separated by just 17 seconds as the peloton rolls along. There on the left-hand side of the road in the yellow, and that is the Tinkoff team. And of course, that's the squad of Alberto Contador. 4 seconds back in the general classification now. This was 2 years ago, stage 17 at the Vuelta a España. Contador in one of the most remarkable Grand Tours we've seen in the last 10 years, surging to a victory. And Contador coming back this year at the Volta a Catalunya, looking to make up that deficit. It's going to be difficult, but he races well in his home country. A 2-time winner of the Vuelta, 2-time winner of the Tour of the Basque Country coming up. Contador somehow needs to find 4 seconds over these last 2 days to unseat Joaquin Rodriguez as the leader of the race. 2 minutes, 26 seconds from this 9-man breakaway back to the field with 15 kilometers left to go. No more climbing, no more intermediate sprints. It's either downhill or flat pretty much the rest of the way. And it is a little downhill in the last 2K before the finish line, so that'll enhance the speed as they bring it to the line. Lampre at the front of the field. Roberto Ferrari is their top sprinter, but hasn't really been a factor in the field sprints so far in this race. And it's single file through here for the peloton.
It is definitely flying back in the peloton. They want Ferrari to get to that top step. He's had a second spot, but I really don't see that they're going to have the chance to make it all the way back up to that group. Over 2 minutes, 15 kilometers. It would take everybody in the front group to have a biomechanical and a mechanical at the same time for that field to catch them.
Now, not often do you see a breakaway that forms inside the first 10 kilometers of a stage. Take it the distance, wire to wire, but it looks like that's what's going to happen here.
That's why guys go in breakaways. I mean, first of all, it takes pressure off your team. Should the break be caught, if you got a guy up in the break, your team has never had to do any chasing, so that takes the pressure off. That's what the Giant Shimano team did yesterday, putting Georg Preidler in the move, and they got to sit in all day, and then Mezgec just torched everybody at the finish. That's the bike race. But if the race stays away with the break, hey, you got a guy in the move, then he can still contest the win. You always want to be represented up the road. Once you miss the initial break, you can be really behind the 8 ball the entire day trying to make up for that one mistake.
$14 kilometers to go. Road really twisting and turning through this region. Time bonuses at the finish, but really won't be much of a concern for the riders in the move. They're so far down on the general classification. Joaquin Rodriguez, the overall race leader, will be glad that these guys are in position to eat up those time bonuses, so the guys immediately behind him in the overall standings aren't there to fight it out for him.
We're talking about composition of these breakaways and why guys go in them. And I was mentioning how if you have representation there, it makes such a difference in the tactics. Well, yesterday, Michiel Elizen, the director for Belkin, and they have Steph Clement there in the red jersey. On the right side, the red jersey, the one on the left is Millard, the Cofidis rider. He said, once again, just like yesterday, they wanted to put a man in the move. He says they're happy to try and ride for Paul Martins for a field sprint, but they don't want to have to chase all day if there's a break up the road. So by putting Clement in here, they get several options. One, he can consolidate his lead in the mountains classification. He's already gotten more points there. Two, if it stays away, he can try and get the win. Three, if it gets caught, his team is fresh, and they try and lead out Paul Martins. However, I don't think anybody would have been beaten Mezgec in a field sprint. He has shown he's far and away the fastest guy.
That really is a game of just giving yourself options. The more, the better.
Nice big group, 8 guys, lots of horsepower. 2 or 3 guys, much harder to go the distance, and they're all still working together. And I think I said 8, it's actually 9 men in the break. And look at them just still riding like they're all on the same team.
Everybody still looks pretty strong.
Yeah, they're just flying along. The race has been absolutely off the hook today with the speeds.
And 139 now the difference. So the field is gaining on the breakaway, but they're running out of rope. That's the problem. They're down to the final 12K.
Well, 139, it's not out of the question. The last time gap we got 3K ago said it was like 226, so either that was wrong or the field is absolutely flying at this point.
Joaquin Rodriguez looking to win the Volta a Catalunya for the second time in his career. Also won it back in 2010. This race, interestingly enough, has not had a back-to-back winner since Miguel Indurain in 1991 and 92. And that streak is no doubt going to continue this year because Dan Martin hasn't been a factor in the overall standings. So we've seen different winners every year for over the last 2 decades at this race.
Kind of amazing when you think about it, because quite often guys will repeat, especially in a hilly race like this, because it's typically not a race of sort of wild card surprises. You got big mountains, usually a couple of summit finishes. The best guys tend to be good for several years, but it's just been one of those races where it's been really mixed up. I mean, Dan Martin's win last year, it was really impressive, and it was early on in what became an incredible year for him. I mean, he went on to win Liège-Bastogne-Liège, one of the monuments in cycling, one of the classics that's the biggest in the books. Stage winner at the Tour de France. I mean, he had a terrific year last year, and this really put him on the map.
Yeah, I mean, this race invites a certain style of rider. It's not like it's really wide open to all kinds of riders. You would think that at least once somebody would have defended their title from the year before, and it's typically a race that the same guys do over and over. It's not like you come here one year and then skip it the next. It kind of fits into the program of a lot of guys year after year.
Yeah, and those climbers, I mean, they come to this race because if you can't climb, you may as well not show up if you're here for the GC. You do not have a chance with those 2 summit finishes and no time trial. There's nowhere to make up lost time.
And a lot of the marquee general classification riders use it to get a yardstick on how they're doing and how their top competition is doing, because there's not a lot of alternatives right now. It's not like a situation where you have with Tirreno Adriatico and Paris-Nice where they are run simultaneously and you have to choose one or the other. This is the only real option for a GC rider at this point in the season.
Yeah, that brings up two points of comment. First of all, the UCI has recognized the fact that the calendar, the pro calendar, is too crowded and there's too many concurrent races. And so they're in the process of starting to roll out over the next several years some sweeping changes in the calendar, in the size of the teams, in the classification of the teams, and all these things. So we're not going to have that in a few years. We're not going to have 2 huge races taking place at the same time. And so that's very interesting. I think it's probably long overdue. And one of the things they're going to do is they're going to reduce from the top tier from 18 teams that automatically have to do all these World Tour races down to 16 teams. So that means there will be more wild cards, and I think that's good for the sport. I mean, Steve, you and I have talked multiple times off the air. Here goes Jens. Jens finally making the big move.
The only question is what took so long? What took so long?
9K to go.
Trademark move.
And Clement, the first to respond, kind of looking around. Steve, we've been talking about how too many teams are automatically qualified, and we thought that they should back that down. I'm glad the UCI is dropping that down to 16.
Yeah, these changes will be rolled out over the next few years, and right now the chase in the breakaway is on for the man who is trying to catch everybody by surprise, Jens Volta. Remember last year at the Tour de France, he was launching these solo missile attacks from 50K out. At least he waited inside the final 10K this time, but it doesn't look like he's going to get away so easily.
This group is already starting to shatter. Pierre Rolland on his wheel. I did not get a look at the man who has gone clear of him now, and it was Steph Clement trying to close it down. And maybe Nico Seymans, the Wanty rider, who's off solo now in front.
Looks like it's pretty much all going to come back together here, though.
Indeed it is. Jens on the front, Pierre Rolland second, Clement third, Maillard fourth.
And now there's Rolland. And up the left-hand side of the road, Steph Clement taking in charge as Rolland just sits in. Thought Rolland might make a move there for Europcar, but Steph Clement of Belkin now rides to the front.
I would say the smart money right now would be to sit back, let these guys hit each other a few times. Antonio Piedra on the back for Caja Rural, great spot. Let these guys attack each other for a while. Sit back behind, out of sight, out of mind. Let them close the gaps down. And then once they do it for a while, then try and hit them with the killer attack.
AG2R at the front of the field here, 124 behind with 8 kilometers remaining. Lampre still with representation at the front of the peloton. They still have faith.
Now they're down to only 5 guys in the race. One of them, of course, is Roberto Ferrari. And they would like to see him get that elusive stage win. That looks like Pierre Rolland now on the front.
Now that's the interesting thing. Once that first attack happens from the group, then everybody gets a little nervous and a little anxious. They start looking around because they know, all right, it's on. The attacks are coming. I've got to either make my move or somebody else is going to do it. I've got to be attentive. But once they start, they don't stop.
Yeah, and you could see on that overhead shot, you could see how windy it is. And you can see it some of the hedges here blowing incredibly hard. Piedra now, the man who was on the back, going on the attack. Volta says, no way. Not if I can help it.
And Jens comes through to the front.
Incredibly windy out there. Rudy Millard now. Piedra right on his wheel. Everybody's looking.
That's also the very tricky thing about being in a group like this. If you're trying to time a move or maybe a sprint at the end of the stage, is the wind. Trying to judge the wind and not get surprised by it.
Yeah, Pierre Rolland. Now that was good timing there. Little bit of a gap.
No more climbing. Downhill or flat the rest of the way. And this is the biggest gap we've seen from this group here. Pierre Rolland at the top of the screen. And nobody coming across as of yet. 7K from the finish on a very windy stage number 6.
And they're pretty much going into a headwind at this point, so it's really ugly when you're out there on your own. Clement trying to close it down, and it looked like he was getting the job done there.
Look how exposed it is to the wind out here, too. All right, so another attack snuffed out. Almost 4 hours in. It's going to be settled from the breakaway here today. Peter Seri, Pierre Rolland at the front.
And Rolland's on him, so Seri shuts it down.
And now Steph Clement launches a move. And that's a blistering pace.
One look back over his shoulder there, and he has automatically opened up a gap.
This could be dangerous. Everybody else has been attacking. There's some soft legs back there. Clement has been waiting, sitting at the back. He hasn't been making these repeated attacks. He could be fresh, and he could be riding away from him.
He has certainly done some work closing down some gaps, but look at him go now into the final kilometer, and he's got some motor going there. The speed is high.
This is right in his wheelhouse. He's a 4-time Dutch national time trial champion. A bronze medalist at the World Time Trial Championships as well back in 2007, and that's exactly what this is. An individual TT for a stage win at the Volta a Catalunya.
The chase is still on. They have not let him go. Piedra now. Let's see if he's the first man chasing. No, he must have been off the back. Clement here now into the final stretch.
Peter Seri and Rudy Millard, second and third on the road. Trying to close it down, trying to catch Steph Clement. But the Belkin rider holding him off as he heads towards the line. And Steph Clement gets his first win of the season as he captures stage 6 of the Volta. Rudy Millard, Peter Seri, 2 and 3 on the day.
Boy, those guys battled it out for kilometer after kilometer with the attacks. I lost count of how many there were, but Clement finally had the timing and the legs to solo in for just over the final kilometer.
What a tactical game it was, and Steph Clement played it perfectly, waiting until just the right time to attack when he knew he could keep it all the way to the finish. He maintained that high-end speed, didn't have to back down, and as a result, he gets a stage win, as here's the sprint from the field now behind.
Well, these guys still sprinting it out, partially for the practice and partially for a top 10.
Roberto Ferrari, Daniele Arato among the guys sprinting here. But these are places well down in the standings on the day as the field comes across just about a minute back of our winner, Steph Clement of Belkin, launching a move from the breakaway and picking up the win on stage number 6. Steph Clement, a well-timed attack and a well-earned win.
The only breakaway which has succeeded from the early stages of one of these road races in the entire race so far.
He wins just ahead of Rudy Millard, Peter Seri, and Jens Vogt rounding out the top 4. Clement on the podium. And it doesn't affect the general classification as Joaquin Rodriguez still leads Alberto Contador by 4 seconds. Top 4 separated by 10 seconds. Rodriguez will be the leader going into a tricky final day, stage 7 in
Hello, everyone. Alongside Todd Gogolski, I'm Craig Hummer. It's been a wet and